ovulation is a massive indicator of your overall health. If you don't ovulate, you don't have a period. And if you don't ovulate, then your body isn't making these really important hormones. Ovulation is actually the main event of your menstrual cycle. We always talk about the bleed as being like this significant thing. Actually, it's ovulation that we all need to be really paying attention to, because it really impacts the rest of your long-term health as a woman, both now and right through to old age in so many ways. Welcome to Wild Flow, the podcast with me, your host, Charlotte Pointeau. I'm a wild feminine cycle coach here for the awakened woman who is ready to reclaim her body, menstrual cycle and feminine power, and to live, love and lead in flow with nature's wisdom. In this podcast, I'll share how you can live in sync with your menstrual cycle and life seasons, heal your relationship with your womb and rites of passages, and embody your wild feminine as a multi-passionate woman in life, mothering and business. It's your time to flourish as a cyclical being in this modern world. Are you ready? Let's flow. Hey, welcome to Wild Flow with me, Charlotte. How are you going today? How are you feeling? Where in your cycle are you? Which day are you on? And how's that feeling for you? Just taking a moment to tune into your body and to ask whereabouts you think you are in your cycle. You might know the day specifically, or you might just have the faintest of idea, like, oh, well, I'm not bleeding, and yeah, I'm somewhere around the middle, perhaps, or one of those other phases of your cycle. How's it feeling for you? How's your energy? What kind of thoughts are you having? Are you feeling like you need anything particular today? Just tuning in. I'm on day 25, and last week was my inner summer week, or the back end of my summer week, and I had a really, really busy week. It was really, really full on, and I couldn't believe how busy I was. I was like, how did my calendar get so full? But it was the right phase, I guess, for having the energy to really push through and deliver and enjoy all of the connections, all of the clients and the group spaces I was holding. I really had that awareness that I had this energy to use, and I was using it up creatively, but I was really mindful of looking after myself as well. And so today, as I'm in my premenstrual phase now, and probably going to bleed in the next week, perhaps, I think, based on when I estimate that I ovulated, I'm really taking a lot of extra care to look after myself. But I won't say any more about this right now, because today's topic is very linked, and I'm going to get into that. And this personal example will really help to demonstrate what we're talking about. So today we're talking about the inner summer phase, or the ovulation phase of the menstrual cycle. So we're going to talk about what it is, what it looks and feels like, how to know if you're there, and ways to optimize and use those energies for the best, and also some of the challenges that you might, or some people do, experience at this time, and how you can support yourself to work through that, and how it really links to the rest of your cycle as well. But first, I really want to explain to you what ovulation actually is, what's happening in the body, and why this is such a damn important part of your menstrual cycle. So around the midpoint of your cycle, if you have a roughly 28-day or 1 month-ish menstrual cycle, then this ovulation is going to occur around the halfway point, the midpoint of your cycle. If your cycle is longer or shorter, then your ovulation won't be in the middle. So again, this always comes back to knowing your menstrual cycle, how long it is, and looking out for when you're ovulating. I'll talk more about this soon. Okay, so ovulation is the mature egg that's been growing and ripening in your ovaries. It's now ready, and it ruptures from the follicle in the ovary, and it's caught up and moved down the fallopian tube and makes its way to your womb. And here it waits for sperm. If it's going to be fertilized, then it will attach to the womb lining, and this is called implantation, where it like nestles in and gets all cozy and snug in the blood thick lining of your womb. And then it starts to divide and grow into a fetus, into a baby for the next 9 months. And if that doesn't happen, then this egg, it morphs into what's called a corpus luteum, which is Latin for yellow body. Basically, it's just a bit yellow. And then this pumps out progesterone, which is one of the key hormones in your cycle. And this is when you have your premenstrual phase. And more on that in another episode where I'm going to go deep into the premenstrual phase. So I want to talk about how important ovulation is for your health. Regular ovulation, which happens when your hormones are balanced, when you're not taking hormonal birth control, if you're not pregnant, and if you're not without a period for any other reason, it's critical. So your body makes estrogen in the first half of your cycle, and when that reaches high enough levels, it triggers like a waterfall of other important hormones in your body. And this sort of like, it's called like a cascade, like one thing causes, it's like dominoes. So they're all interplaying, they're all connected. And when you have this waterfall, this cascade of all these hormones being created and released at the right time, in the right way, and in the right quantities, this can lead to ovulation when that egg is released, when it's mature from your ovaries. And then after ovulation, that's when the second hormone, progesterone, is released. So ovulation is a massive indicator of your overall health. If you don't ovulate, you don't have a period. And if you don't ovulate, then your body isn't making these really important hormones. Ovulation is actually the main event of your menstrual cycle. We always talk about the bleed as being like this significant thing that, everyone's like, yeah, there's like a bleed, and then, I don't know, like nothing happens for a few weeks, and then it's the bleed again. Wrong! Da-la-la-la. Actually, it's ovulation that we all need to be really paying attention to and looking at. And like I say, if you don't ovulate, you don't actually get a proper natural period. Different to if you're taking hormonal birth control and you're having a bleed, then that's not actually a period, like a menstrual bleed. That's just where you stop taking the synthetic hormones for a few days. Your body has like a bit of a withdrawal. So if you're taking sugar pills, just for example, then that causes your body to let go of a bit of blood that's been building up in your womb while you've not been having your menstrual cycle. But it's not technically like a full hormonally ovulation induced bleed that fully clears out the full lining of your womb. So having ovulation is really critical. And even when ovulation doesn't result in a baby, so if you're not trying to get pregnant, it's still really important to look after your body and make sure that you're ovulating, because your body needs to make these very important hormones. So it's still worth doing. Still worth ovulating, because your body receives these hormones that the body expects to have. Canadian endocrinology hormone, basically, professor, the endocrine system's the hormone system. So Jerry Lynn Pryor, she says that women benefit from 35 to 40 years of ovulatory cycles, so menstrual cycles where you're actually ovulating, not just for fertility, but also to prevent osteoporosis, stroke, dementia, heart disease, and breast cancer. And Lara Bryden, who is a fantastic women's naturopathic doctor specialist, she says that every monthly dose of estrogen promotes muscle gain, insulin sensitivity, which is linked to your blood sugar and diabetes, for example, and the long-term health of bones, your brain, and the cardiovascular system, so the health and function of your heart. And every monthly dose of progesterone, which is the hormone that's released after ovulation, progesterone reduces inflammation, it regulates immune function, and it supports your thyroid, brain, bones, and breast tissue. That was Laura Brydon. So, I just want to say, there's no shade on anyone who's not regularly ovulating, because this can be for all kinds of reasons, and whatever reason, whatever your approach to your health and your fertility and managing your menstrual cycle is completely all good and totally your choice. And I myself have only just started ovulating regularly, having not done for most of my life, really, actually, having been on the pill for so many years, and then more recently being pregnant and breastfeeding, really only started ovulating regularly in the last few months. And it does kind of worry me, if I'm honest, when I look at all of the benefits to ovulating and I think crap. But, I think that's why I'm so committed to looking at my menstrual cycle, charting it, supporting my health through diet and exercise and sleep and minimizing stress, and really trying to get the best out of my cycle by tending to myself and what I need, so that I can, have the next 10 years, hopefully, of menstrual cycles to be the best that they can be. So regular ovulation, and then moving into a smooth perimenopause and menopause as well as, half the life I'll have after I've reached menopause. So, if that happens, sort of around the age of 50, then still got a long time left to live. And that's when your body's health, everything we're doing now, it's one in the bank for older age. And we've got to be mindful of that. We've got to start thinking about it now and not just live for the present moment. So I'm really hoping that the work that I'm doing for myself, and obviously supporting clients through as well, is going to be beneficial for our long-term health. So important. So if you are someone who's, taking hormonal birth control and that's working for you, great. I'm just giving you this information so that you can make an informed choice, whichever way that goes. If you're someone who's thinking, I really want to start thinking about this as well, you might come off hormonal birth control, you might already be off, you might be starting to think about, really looking after your ovulation and egg health. And if you've got sort of problems with your menstrual cycle, looking at it now, however old you are, whether you're, I don't know who's listening, if you're in your late teens or 20s, 30s, 40s, approaching perimenopause, or, well in perimenopause, wherever you are, it's never too late to start to look at your hormone balance, your hormone health, start caring for yourself to support your ovulation. And, whether you need some more questions asked, a bit of investigation, a bit of support, you can always see a GP, but think better yet, a naturopath who can help with perhaps hormone level testing if they think that that's something that's appropriate, or recommending diet changes and supplements. And you can also work with a cycle coach like myself to support you, by looking at your lifestyle and your connection to your body and your cycle and your womb, and a bit of support and guidance through, all making these changes and nurturing yourself. So I'm going to pop some links to references in the show notes as well. So, how do you know if you're ovulating? Good question. If you have a regular cycle, doesn't matter how long that is, if it's regular, then your ovulation occurs 2 weeks before your bleed. So if you have a, consistently a stable cycle, regardless of how long it is, then, you can predict that say if your cycle's 5 weeks, then 3 weeks in is going to be your ovulation mark. If your cycle's like, 3 weeks, then you're going to be ovulating pretty early on in your cycle. That might be around like day 10 or, thereabouts, just for example. So 2 weeks before you bleed, that's always the same. And it's the first half of your cycle that changes in length, so it gets longer or shorter. So ovulation can be delayed if your hormone levels don't reach that threshold point soon enough. Then ovulation will come a bit later. It's common in perimenopause, and there were other situations as well when your ovulation might come a bit sooner. You might have quite a short first half of your cycle. So if your cycle is under a month, then your the first half of your cycle is quite short and you're ovulating sooner rather than later. If it's irregular, or if it's regular, but you can look out for signs that you're ovulating. And I say if it's irregular, you can't, your cycle changes in length each time, or perhaps you don't even have a bleed every single cycle, then you can get really, really good at looking at the signs that your body gives you that you are actually ovulating and when that might be. And so you can get, pretty up close and personal with some of these signs, these parts of your body, and you can record them. Cycle charting is really important. So you can make a note every day of what you're seeing, and then you can look at patterns. And then, if you bleed, then you can look back 2 weeks ago and look at the notes you've made and say, this is the sort of thing I noticed. So you can work out what your sort of signs are. So the biggest ones are your cervical fluid. So discharge, cervical mucus, cervical fluid, yoni nectar, whatever you like to call it. This is the substance that is yellow to white to clear across your menstrual cycle, and it's the stuff that you'll notice in your underwear, that you'll see in your vulva and vagina, and that's not blood. It's the opposite one. So I've talked about this before in previous episodes, but just in case you're not familiar, cervical fluid is a beautiful magical substance made by your cervix, which is the gateway between your vagina and your womb. Basically, it is like self-cleansing for your vagina, but it also is incredible. It either allows sperm into your womb or it blocks it out at different points in your cycle. And when it wants to allow sperm in is when you're ovulating, because, the human directive is to make babies and procreate. So your cervical fluid, when it's fertile, when it's at the time of ovulation, it gets really thin. So it'll go from white or even a bit yellowy maybe, and it'll get really thin. It'll get really wet as well. It might even have like a stretchy consistency. It might be clear, and there might be a lot of it. And it can leave you feeling really wet in your underwear. And this can last a day or a few days, and then it dries up again. And if you notice that 2 weeks after the last day that you notice this kind of fluid, if you bleed 2 weeks later, then you can look back and go, yep, that was me ovulating. Cervical fluid is something that's really easy for us to see. You just look in your pants. You don't need anything specialist, no special equipment or extra special knowledge. It's just getting to know how your fluid changes. It goes from thick and white to thin, stretchy, clear, wet, and then it dries up again, and then you bleed, basically. And I'll put another link in the show notes too. I've got a guide to looking at how your cervical fluid changes and how you can track your menstrual cycle, available for free. So I'll put that link in if that's something you want to do. If you're somebody who's trying to have a baby or have in the past, you might be somebody, or if you're trying to use natural contraception as well, you might be used to taking your temperature every single morning. And this is a very specific thing. It's called basal body temperature charting, and it's part of the fertility awareness method. It's something that you might be doing, as I say, if you've been trying to fall pregnant. And basically, if this is something that you do or know about, then you can also track your ovulation, because your temperature actually jumps at the time of ovulation. And then this higher temperature pattern is sustained for a good few days, and then it will start to crash again just before your bleed. That's very loose. I'm not going to get into technicalities of this. I'm not a certified fertility awareness method instructor. If you want to learn to do this, either for contraception or for conception, then reach out to a fertility awareness method instructor who can really guide you on to do that. But basically, this is another sign. But again, it's retrospective. You can't look and go, oh, I'm going to ovulate today, tomorrow. You can guess, but it's only looking back can you be absolutely sure by looking at these patterns in your cervical fluid and your body temperature. Again, cycle charting is rather helpful in this. So aside from these very specific bodily signs, there are all kinds of spiritual, emotional, mental, energetic differences that you can also experience as part of this phase. Not everyone does. Everyone experiences it differently, but I'm going to now move into this more. This is like my playground, like the fun stuff. This is what I love to get deep into and to play with and talk about. It's this more, this sort of the spiritual aspects, I guess, of ovulation and how you can work with those. So that's what we're going to dive into now. When I was prepping for this episode, I put over on my Instagram, I put up some stories and I asked, do you know what your ovulation phase feels like? And 90% of respondents said yes. Now, I think this is like perhaps slightly biased because of the people who are, following me. So that's awesome. Maybe you know too as you're listening into this. Maybe you don't. So 10% said no. And then I asked, do you know how to get the best out of this phase? And 89% said yes, and 11% said no, which is fantastic. I also asked what the best parts and the hardest parts about this ovulation phase of the menstrual cycle are. And there were all kinds of different responses, which I just loved because it shows how differently we all experience this. And this is what I want to share with you. So I'm actually going to read out some of the responses that I received. I'm obviously not naming any names. So somebody said the best part of this ovulation phase is feeling turned on and alive. But the worst part is their fall from grace after ovulation. Somebody else said that they can burn themselves out when they feel like they can do it all, and then they find they have a crash from this phase to the premenstrual phase. Somebody said they love how magnetic they feel at this time, and the biggest challenge is not to say yes to too many things. We've got another vote for burnout and trying to keep up with their own energy, feeling fun, energetic, and social. Somebody said the best is they're feeling physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually strong, but really struggle with going. They have this feeling that they go too hard, and then they're burning out, and they're in a autumn. So there's a few votes for that, which is interesting, hey. And somebody else said, which I love, they find it a bit tricky when they feel up for getting out and about, but others aren't. And so they have to really honor that. And so that's talking about like when you have like this high energy yourself that's associated with ovulation, but the people around them don't feel the same. It's like, how do you use your energy and enjoy your energy whilst being around somebody else or other people, other women who are perhaps in different parts of their cycle, or just family members who aren't feeling it. So I loved all of those answers. I thought that was absolutely brilliant. Oh, and another one, I love the energy and vibrancy that this brings, and they want to go on adventures with others. So that's really cool, isn't it? So I'm going to share with you like what is really common to experience in this part of the cycle. So I'll move through physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. This doesn't apply to everyone. So if you're sat there thinking, no, I don't feel that at all, that's cool. I don't want you to ever think that this is like a textbook, like you've got to experience it this way, or somehow your body's failed and you're not doing it right. That's completely wrong. There is no right or wrong way of doing your menstrual cycle. It's just about noticing what comes up for you. And sometimes, depending on what it is, taking that as a hint that maybe something's not quite right in terms of lifestyle or hormone health or stress or whatever. There's all kinds of different things. And then, using that as like right, okay, I need to go off and investigate. So let's jump in. So this phase of the cycle is called the inner summer phase. And that term was coined by Alexandra Pope and Shani Hugo Wurlitzer, who wrote Wild Power, which is a book that I and so many other people who are into cycle awareness, reference over and over. So you might know this book, you might not. So inner summer, that's where it came from. And it's called the inner summer because it's like the peak of the cycle. It's like when, like if you imagine summer, like out in nature, like what do you think of when you think of summer? What's the temperature? What's the sun doing? Like, what's nature doing? Like, how do you feel? It's hot, it's bright, it's outwards, it's the time for connecting usually. It's summer holidays, so it might mean, literally going on holiday. It might mean more time with kids and family. It might mean that your body gets hot, your home gets hot, and it's like this peak, like the sun is at its zenith and you're like, it's hot. And then after summer, it's going to start to cool down again. It's also like the full moon. Like full moon, it's bright, it's full illumination. It's again at the peak of its cycle before it starts to get darker. And it's like full bloom. So if you think of flowers and nature, it's like everything is like abundant and like growing, and you've got fruits and veggies and flowers are like just bloody everywhere. It's like, raw summer. It's like that in your body if everything's well and everything's ovulating. So as I've said, physically, this is the fertile phase. It's when hormone levels peak and it's the egg is ripe and is being released from your ovary. On a physical level, this can be a time as these hormones rise that you have much more energy and much more capacity. You also might feel sexual because, your hormones want you to try and conceive. And so it can be a time when you have more arousal, more desire, and much more of a wanting to be around other people, and also to have sex, and maybe even to have like a certain type of sex. You might feel like you really want to have like properly like passionate, active, intense lovemaking, full sex. Whereas at different parts of your cycle, you might feel like, that's slower or more cuddly, or, it might not even be sex. It might be more foreplay, or, so at this time of your cycle, you might notice that you've got like a really high libido and that you really want to have, a specific kind of sex as well. You might notice that you have like this idea of sensuality. So, like your skin feels, good. Your skin is glowing, and, like everything just kind of feels good. It's like the breeze, you notice the breeze on your cheek and through your hair, and the smells, you can just smell everything. Everything smells more and like more delicious. You might notice like that you want to wear certain kinds of clothes. You might want to wear less clothes, depending on the weather, of course. You might want to wear like more beautiful clothes, or more clothes that just feel good, or you might want to take a bit of extra time. You might want to dress a bit more, behave. You might feel a bit more flirty. This again might not be the case. Some people really don't get this. And, that might be if your hormone levels aren't high enough to really give you this, and your energy is not high enough. So if you haven't paced yourself in the first half of your cycle, you might get to your summer and just be bloody knackered, and you might just have nothing to give. And this is, real time when you can get burnout. And some people also experience pain with ovulation. This can be linked to a few things on the physical level that are worth investigating. So seeking help, perhaps from a naturopath if that's you. Not everyone gets this kind of peak experience, and if you don't, it's cool. It's totally okay. But it's worth looking at how you're navigating the first half of your cycle. Are you supporting yourself, pacing yourself, eating well, sleeping well? Are you stressed? Are you holding on to some of that energy for this phase of your cycle, or did you go way too hard too soon, my friend? Okay, mentally, it can be a time of clearer thinking. So you might think clearer, speak clearer, be a bit more, this is funny, I'm umming and ahhing as I say the word, precise and eloquent. You might have like this sense of like being able to do things, and like things are just happening more easily for you. Life can feel a bit more flowy, and like everything's just happening. It can give you this sense of feeling invincible, and you might want to start saying yes to lots of things, as like one of the comments earlier on. You can feel like you want to give of yourself, like you've got this energy and this desire to like, yes, like life is great. But if you have energy, it could be really easy to think like that you've got the stamina and the resilience and the capacity to keep giving. So just watch out like how much you agree to at this time, because everything can feel like a good idea. Of course, on the flip side, this can be completely overwhelming time as well. So if you're knackered, if you're, all the things I've just been saying, this can show up as feeling overwhelmed, like too much on your plate, not being able to give. It can feel like everyone wanting a piece of you, and you just can't keep up. Like who's there for you? I hear you. I have been there. So this can show up as like a victim or like a martyr kind of mindset, like giving too much of yourself away. And this just isn't sustainable. So really watch what you're saying yes to. Emotionally, like I say, this can be like the high time. It can be like this time of confidence and feeling outward and feeling like you just really want to, like you can feel happy. You can feel quite happy at this time and like excited and optimistic. It can be a time of really wanting to enjoy this energy of play and pleasure and like enjoying yourself. But it can also bring up with this like a real, a time of wanting to be alone. If this all feels too much, and maybe that you're actually seeking connection and, trying to express yourself in ways that aren't actually healthy for you. Other shadows it can bring are related to sexuality. So just going back to the physical part, is if you're somebody who, doesn't have a good relationship with your sexuality, if, you've experienced trauma or violence, or if you have a disconnection to your body and your womb and your cycle, then this can feel like your body's throwing you out there, this sort of energy, this urge coming from within, but you're not comfortable with it. And so it can bring up shadows around that. So just be really mindful as well of how you experience this, because, it can be a good thing. It can also be not a good thing. And also it's like a real being energy. So we can go at this two ways, like the joy of this peak. It's like riding this wave. Like we've done all that hard work in the first half of our cycle to bring, everything to life. And we've, come back out of our moon cave and our eggs have grown in our body and, our energy is peaking. And now we're at this critical, like the top of the wave. So we've caught the wave. That's like the phase before this, the inner spring. Inner summer is like riding that wave. And so you're not doing anything. You're just riding the wave of the momentum. So if you can do that, it's really a really beautiful, special thing to just enjoy, I say like the fruits of your labor, like all of your hard work, like, manifesting and magnetizing your desires, your outcomes in terms of productivity, staying in this being energy, just letting it ride that wave of momentum. Now is not the time to be starting anything new. And it's also not a time for like doing as such. So it's time for being. So being with yourself and with other people and with your creations, your creation energy, rather than doing and hustling and putting new things into place. So it's all about being. So, really revel in that connection. Revel in your creative energy, your sexual energy, your sensual energy, parenting and relationships. So I find that when I'm in this phase of my cycle, I'm like, yeah, kids, no worries. Like, I'll have you for the, my husband went away for 5 days this cycle, and lucky for him and the kids and me, I was in my inner summer, and I was like far out, like 5 days. And my sister came to stay for a couple of days as well, which was cool. And we were really busy. We did a lot. And the only reason I think I kind of got through that, without having like any crying or like burning out, was because I was ovulating, and I was in this summer phase of my cycle. Like, I had the energy, the resilience, the desire to be around all these other people, like all my kids and my sister, and to go to swimming class, and we went bowling, and we did all this stuff. If that had been at any other time in my cycle, that would not have gone down as well. I guarantee it. But the flip side of this is that, if you push yourself too hard here, you can really fall over later on in your cycle. It can show up as like burnout, and like some people said, that crash down into autumn. So parenting can feel easier here, like connecting relationships with family and friends and clients as well. Like, if you're in a client-facing role, you might find it much easier to give your energy to your clients. So as a coach, I find that I've got energy here, like my brain's a bit clearer, especially as a mum of young kids. Sometimes I have client sessions after a night where I've really not slept, and I'm not afraid to cancel a session or like postpone it if I have to. But also really have learned to work with my energy. And so if I'm in like this peak high energy as I'm holding space for clients, then I have to just be mindful that I'm not projecting too much of that onto them, because it's interesting. Like, if they're in their summer as well, then woohoo, we can get a bit giddy and a bit carried away and a bit, giggly, and like, our energy just like gets higher and higher and higher as we build it up and up. If there's someone who's like premenstrual or bleeding, like, they're going to find me probably kind of annoying. So, having that awareness, grounding myself before a session, and holding that space. And if I'm feeling knackered, then that's okay. Like, I can work with that energy as well, and, trust that it's not me who needs to give all of my energy away for that client. Like, I can hold that space, and that space that I'm holding holds me and the client. The other thing is that if you're doing like sales calls or presentations or meetings or, like discovery calls or whatever it is that you're doing in your work, then this is a really good time to use that energy and use that natural magnetism that you have at this time of your cycle, because it will come more easily to you. And they say that an ovulating woman is like the most attractive woman in the room because, hey, pheromones. So, if you can have a sense of awareness of, maybe like getting the best out of this phase, then, do you want to line up any of this kind of stuff for this time? Just going to have a sip on my tea. Lovely. Okay. So basically, moral of the story, you might not experience your cycle like that in terms of like all of these benefits or these strengths. You might have, quite a few challenges or shadow aspects depending on what you call them, come through at this phase. You might love this phase, you might hate this phase. It's just like, just like anything, we can all experience it slightly differently. And it's really about noticing your experience, noticing what's true for you. What are the strengths? What are the challenges of this phase? And then questioning, like, okay, so what do I need to support myself? Like, how can I use the strengths and the energy that you've got? But how can you really support your shadows, and, the things that are more challenging for you? How can you support yourself so that they just don't kind of eat you alive? And if you're noticing that you're not ovulating, or it's irregular, or you just feel like crap at this time, then I really suggest that you reach out for some support, whatever kind of support that is for you. So generally, the keys are to look at this phase, and then to look at, what else is going on across your cycle. So are you getting the best out of all of your phases? Because your whole cycle is obviously connected. These are not separate. These are absolutely not separate. What happens in one phase of your cycle affects what happens in the next phases. So if you're having a shocking summer, just watch out and notice, do you have a shocking premenstrual phase as well? Like, how do you feel then? Because if you're having a crap premenstrual phase, it's quite possible that you're having a crap summer, or not looking after yourself in summer. There's a whole lot more that we can go into. How I support my clients as a cycle coach is to really look at all of these things, look at exactly what your experience is, and not just the phase of your cycle that you're having problems with, but all of the other phases as well, and how they're interconnected. And then not just on the surface level of practical stuff and self-care stuff and lifestyle, I take you much deeper into the deeper, lower realms. So, your connection to your body, your cycle, your womb, how you experienced your menarche, your first period, what sort of blocks you're experiencing. And I bring in my feminine embodiment coaching skills as well, to work through that and to release tensions and move through blocks, and to create and magnetize in, like, your body, working with your body, the way that you really want to live and experience your cycle and your life, and how you can find and experience flow in all of these different realms across your cycle. So anyway, that's what I'm sharing with you today. There's the references I'm going to put in the show notes. And if you need support, reach out either to me or another practitioner who you think would be able to support you. And I would really love you to drop into my DMs on Instagram. I'm at charlotte.puanto.coach. And if you don't know how to spell Puanto, check out the front cover of this podcast because it's there. And I'd love you to share with me, like, what your inner summer is like, what you love to do at this time. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Because, like I say, we all experience it differently, and it's really good to hear. And I'd love to hear from you and share a little bit of some support in my DMs. So jump on over to Instagram, and if you want to come join our free community as well, we're on Facebook. It's the Wild Flow Circle. Come hang out with all of us. Right, chickens, wishing you well. I hope that whatever day you're on in your cycle, you're having a good day. If not, what do you want to do for the next 5 minutes to support yourself today in whatever way that you need to do that? I'm going to share another episode. I don't know if it's going to be the next one or fairly soon, before we take a break at the end of this season. That's going to be all about the premenstrual phase, like that inner autumn, which is the phase after ovulation and the one that comes before the bleed. And that's going to be a big juicy one, because that's a classic time when people really struggle. So if you've got any questions about that phase, if you want to share with me how you find it, and you're happy for me to speak to that on that podcast episode, also jump into my DMs. Just drop me a message on Instagram and share away with me, and then I'll be able to speak to that. All right, loves, take care. Loads of love. Bye. Thank you so much for listening in. If you're loving this podcast and you'd love to help me spread the wisdom shared, please leave a review or rating, or share this with somebody who you think would love to listen in. I'm really passionate about creating ripples of change and getting this information to more women, girls, and people with a cycle so that they can reclaim their cyclic natures too. And if you'd love to dive in deeper with learning more about how to connect with your cycle and rites of passages, come and join our free Wild Flow Circle community, or choose a course and learn with me on my online learning hub. All the links are in the show notes. And until next time, be well and go with the flow of your cyclic nature.